Matt Nicole, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take a couple of minutes and I'm going to go through your policy to re-explain the benefits that you guys already have in place. And while we're doing that, let's take a look to see if there's something maybe that we can upgrade you on. All right, so the first thing I'm going to talk to you about are your living benefits. This section right here covers you guys if you're injured in any sort of accident. This first section, it can be anything like stepping out your front door, stepping on a nail. We live in Rochester, right? 6 months of the year, it's rainy, snowy, cold, and wet. Now, if you walk out your front door, you slip and fall. If you're seen within 72 hours by a licensed medical provider, we're going to pay you $300. Now, that can be ER, urgent care, or even a trip to your normal preferred care provider, just as long as it's within 72 hours. Your next benefit down here is if Matt were to be hospitalized, say he's on his way to get milk one morning and somebody blows through a stop sign and T-bones him and he ends up being hospitalized. I'm talking about admitted, not just a quick trip to the ER. If he's admitted into the hospital for that accident, what we're going to do is we're going to pay you $600 a day for up to 360. What you're covered for is $600 a day for up to 365 days that he's confined to the hospital bed. This is per occurrence. What this means is that if Matt is discharged from the one hospital, discharged from the hospital, goes home a couple months later, he's re-injured in another accident and is confined to another hospital bed, that 365 days starts all over. Your next coverage is intensive care. If the accident is worse and Matt is admitted into the intensive care unit, what your benefit covers right now is $1,200 a day for every day up to 14 days. Why 14 days? Is because two things are going to happen to you guys if you're in the ICU for 14 days. One, you're either going to be using the funeral benefits that I'm going to go over with you in a couple of minutes, or Matt is going to be just moved to a different room. He's recovering. So if that happens, what we're going to do is we're just going to revert the benefit back to the $600 a day. This next benefit is the accidental death benefit. The first, you and Nicole are covered in, if you guys are killed in any sort of an accident, you both will be covered for $110,000. In the event that one of your kids were to pass away in an accident, they would be covered for $12,000. Now, what's the most dangerous thing we do every day?
Driving.
Absolutely. If for no other reason than the amount of time we spend in the car. If either one of you were to be killed in any type of accident in a car, it doesn't matter if you're driving, on vacation, sleeping in the back seat, or even at fault for the accident, you're both covered for $170,000, and each child is covered for $24,000. Now, common care, you're also covered for common carrier death as well. This covers things like planes, trains, taxi cab, and Uber and Lyft are also covered. It's based on anything you pay a fare to travel in or on. You'll each be covered for $350,000. You're each covered for $350,000, and each child is covered for $60,000. Now, if Matt and Nicole, if you were both killed in an automobile accident and your children survived, your children and your beneficiary would receive a check for $340,000. Now, if you were both, heaven forbid, on a plane and the plane crashed, that is a check for $700,000 being sent to your children and your beneficiary, so that your beneficiary can take care of your children. This next benefit I'm going to go over with you is called the child rider. The worst thing any parent ever wants to have to do is having to bury a child. But sometimes parents outlive their children. What this, and not having the money to give your child a proper burial, could make a bad situation a little bit worse. It doesn't get much worse than having to bury a child, but you get my point. What your benefit does, it covers you for $10,000 in the event that something were to happen to your child. Now, it's not all about death. There's a bright side to this as well. Once your child reaches the age of 21, their $10,000 policy can be converted to a $50,000 whole life policy without them ever having to answer even one medical question. What this means is that once your child turns 21, they can't be asked if they have juvenile diabetes. They can't be asked if they have MS. There's a whole list of things that children can be diagnosed with when they're younger, that this policy, once they hit the age of 21, this can be converted without them ever having to answer one question like that. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Let's move on. Have either one of you ever been on the financial side of planning a funeral before?
Yeah.
You have. Was it recent?
Yep.
Was it somebody close to you guys?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry to hear that. And then, as you guys know, most funerals in New York State average about $14,000 per funeral. And what a lot of people I sit down with don't realize is that funerals aren't paying, or insurance companies aren't paying for funerals the way they used to. Insurance companies, the way it used to work is that if something were to happen to Nicole, you would take her policy to the funeral director and he would hold on to it as collateral until the policy paid out. It doesn't happen like that anymore. In fact, insurance companies used to have to pay on a policy within 24 days. Now, they can hold on to that policy for up to 60 days. Do you guys know why?
No.
Well, interest, right? I mean, the longer they hold on to your policy, the more interest they make, the more money they make off your policy. That's why so many families are stuck paying with out-of-pocket costs when it comes to arranging a funeral. There's also something else going on. There are two companies right now. One's out of Texas called SCI, and the other one's out of Canada called the Alderwood Group. These companies are going around buying up all the little mom and pop funeral homes. Their actual goal is to become the Walmart of the funeral industry. The reason I bring them up is because their corporate policy is to require 50% of the cost of the funeral upfront. A lot of families I sit down with don't have the $7,000 just lying around. I don't know your current financial situation, but I would guess you don't either. Speaking of something, and I shouldn't do that. That's why we've come up with this. This is the preferred, or the Freedom of Choice funeral certificate. The way this works is pretty simple. Nicole, you would take this to any funeral home in the United States, and they'll accept it. In fact, they love it because it's backed by big, powerful unions just like yours. The way this works is pretty simple. Nicole, if something were to happen to Matt, you would sit down with the funeral director. You guys are going to negotiate a price for the funeral. You're going to fill in the arrangements. He'll sign as the witness, and you'll sign as the beneficiary. And then when the day something does happen to Matt, all you're going to do is take this to him, fill in the negotiated price, and sign. Now, what's going to happen is there will be no out-of-pocket costs whatsoever as long as you keep Matt's funeral under $20,000 and Matt, you keep Nicole's funeral under $20,000. Those are some pretty important numbers. Why are they important? Because when you leave, the funeral director is going to flip this over and he's going to either call our corporate office in Texas or our corporate office in Syracuse, New York. Now, when he calls, he's going to ask two different questions. One, are you enrolled in the program? And you are. You're enrolled in the program. The next thing they're going to ask is, how much money do you have to work with? Now, if I were to sit there and tell them you have $20,000 to work with, how much do you think that funeral is magically going to cost?
$20,000.
It's probably going to cost $19,999. it shouldn't work that way, we don't allow it to work that way. What we'll simply do is we will cut the funeral home a check for the negotiated price, not a cent more or a cent less, and then Nicole, you and the kids will receive a check for the difference of the policy. This is kind of like a pre-arranged funeral. Have you guys heard of pre-arranged funerals?
Yep.
Well, they're great in concept, except this is a blank check for $20,000. Pre-arrangements are only worth the money you've paid into them, and most of the time, you're stuck to one funeral home for them. Does that make sense to you guys?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So as I'm looking through what you guys have, it seems as though you're missing some income protection. Having your funeral taken care of is super important. I agree with that. You agree with that. But what's of equal concern is what happens after the funeral. If something were to happen to Matt Nicole, do you think you would still receive his paycheck?
No.
No, it doesn't work that way. And what kind of recurring bills do you guys have every month?
Mortgage, car payments, insurance, cell phones, Netflix,
Yeah, it's a lot of
Hulu,
bills.
Amazon, Disney Plus.
So if something were to happen to Matt Nicole, do you think you'd be able to keep paying for all of those bills without his income?
Probably not. Might have to get rid of the Netflix.
The Netflix?
Uh-huh.
All right, so what this benefit does is that if something were to happen, what a lot of people don't realize is how insurance works. The best analogy that I can come up with is insurance works like a $100 bill, right? Nicole, if you go into a store on a Friday night and break a $100 bill to buy a couple pops and say a slice of pizza, how much of that $100 are you going to have left on Monday?
Oh, none.
Exactly, and most of us don't even know where the money went. Life insurance, liquid cash works the exact same way. When something happens to Matt, you're going to be able to collect on that policy up to 60 days later. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to break the policy. You're going to pay back wherever you got the funeral money from. I'm not saying you're going to squander it or splurge with it, but let's be honest, life insurance money usually lasts only about 2 years. What this policy does, or what my proposal to you is that I want to protect your income. So what my proposal is that income protection would pay you, Nicole, if something were to happen to Matt, $2,000 a month for 60 months. That's 5 years. Do you think if something happened to Matt, you could use an extra $2,000 a month for 5 years?
He's still alive. I could still use an extra $2,000 a month
Yeah.
for 5 years.
Definitely, I completely agree. Yeah, you bet you could. What's also built into this is if something were to also happen to Nicole, Matt, the same thing applies, right? The same thing applies. If something were to happen to Nicole, Matt, you and the kids would be cut a check for $2,000 a month for 60 months. That's plan A. Plan B I have for you. I'm going to rewind just a little bit, and I'm just going to jump in. Don't worry about shutting it off. What this allows for you to do, Matt, it allows you and the kids to live the lifestyle that you're accustomed to if something were to happen to her as well. Now, plan B is we just cut the years down a little bit. So plan B would be $2,000 a month for 36 consecutive months instead of 60 months. So that is $2,000 a month for 3 years instead of 5. Now, most of the families I sit down with choose option A because they enjoy or they want the extra 2 years of the income protection. But it's whatever fits your family needs. So, would you like to choose option A or option B?
Option B.
Okay.